Hello and welcome to Canada Immigration Updates. Today we'll be discussing how to maintain your status as a postgraduate work permit (PGWP) holder while waiting for the next Canadian Experience Class (CEC) draw. With express entry draws targeting Provincial Nominee Program (PNP) candidates, those who are currently in Canada on a PGWP and waiting for a CEC draw are feeling anxious about maintaining their status and staying in Canada. The Canadian government had dealt with a similar situation during the COVID-19 pandemic when the CEC draws were paused in September 2021, and the government responded by announcing a one-time extension for those with a PGWP expiring between September 2021 and December 2022. However, no similar measure has been announced for those whose PGWPs will expire in 2023. So, what can you do to maintain your status as a PGWP holder while waiting for the next CEC draw? The first and most important thing to do is to apply for another work or study permit before your PGWP expires. By doing this, you can continue working and living in Canada as a temporary resident while waiting for the next CEC draw. If you don't maintain your temporary resident status, you will need to stop working on the day your PGWP expires and leave Canada. There are multiple temporary permits to apply for, depending on your budget and circumstances. The first type of permit is the LMIA-required work permit. If you're employed, you may be able to change from a PGWP, an open work permit, to one that requires a Labour Market Impact Assessment, LMIA. This means that your employer will need to submit an application to Employment and Social Development Canada, ESDC, to assess if, hiring, you will have a positive, neutral, or negative impact on Canada's labour force. If the outcome is positive or neutral, you will likely still be able to work for your current employer, but you will not be able to work anywhere else until the permit expires or you get permanent resident status. LMIA processing times under the Global Talent Stream can take as little as 2 weeks. The second type of permit is the LMIA-exempt work permit, which falls under the International Mobility Program. To be considered under the significant benefit category, the applicant must be deemed to be doing work that has a social, cultural, or economic benefit to Canada. The third type of permit is a study permit, which allows you to work in Canada if you're enrolled in a post-secondary designated learning institution. Full-time students are eligible to work 20 hours a week off campus during the academic year and full-time during scheduled academic breaks. However, the recent temporary removal of the cap on hours students are eligible to work applies only if your study permit application was received on or before October 7, 2022. If none of these options work for you, you can leave Canada when your PGWP expires and return under a visitor's visa, TRV. Under a TRV, you may stay in Canada, but you're not legally allowed to work or study. You must also be able to prove that you have sufficient funds to support yourself for the length of your stay. Lastly, you can maintain your status by applying for a visitor record, which is different from a visitor visa in that you don't need to leave Canada to get it. To be eligible, you must apply at least 30 days before your PGWP, or any other work or study permit, expires. While in Canada on a visitor record, you're not allowed to work or study, and you won't be able to leave Canada unless you plan to return with a visitor visa instead. In conclusion, there are multiple temporary permits to apply for to maintain your status as a resident and stay in Canada while waiting for the next CEC draw. These include switching to an LMIA-required work permit, applying for an LMIA-exempt work permit, obtaining a study permit, applying for a visitor visa or a visitor record. It's important to keep in mind that you must apply for another work or study permit before your PGWP expires to maintain your temporary resident status. By doing so, you can continue living and working in Canada while waiting for the next CEC draw. We hope this information has been helpful to you. Thank you for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for more updates on Canadian immigration.